Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of Coloring Outside the Box. Today is January the 1st, 2022. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I personally am a little bit challenged in this moment because normally I just get right into what I want to talk about, and I don't give a lot of instructions, but today, I'm going to be talking about the general energies of 2022. And if you really want to know what the year holds for you, you can connect to the material that I shared with the Daily Express in London, England. Now, I'm hoping to be able to put all of the links to the various ones in the comments box after I post my video on YouTube. Or you can go to my website, which is www.lesley.francis.com, and sign up for my newsletter, because the links will also come out in my newsletter. If none of those options work or appeal to you, you can also go to www.express.co.uk and type in, for example, if you're in Aries 2022 yearly horoscope, and it should come up. If it doesn't come up right at the top, don't get frustrated, just keep looking for it. So now that I've given you all the options for tuning into that, I also want to say that if for any reason you're interested in the PDF of your sun sign, please, you can put a comment in the comment box with your email address, and I can check it there, or you can email me at aquariusstellium@outlook.com. So now I feel like a teacher, and I really would like to move on from that. So what does 2022 hold for us? Well, it's interesting because we've got the energies will feel a little bit gentler this year, at least in terms of the world not seeming so overwhelming. We do enter the year with a lot of practical, earth-focused energy. Let's get down to business. Let's get the job done. A lot of earth energy. And that's going to provide us with something of a balance for, what am I trying to say? Apparently my brain is having trouble figuring out what I'm trying to say. We've been through a lot, things are really still remain fluid. So it's kind of hard to express that kind of practical problem solving, let's get the job done energy in a time and a place where everything feels like it's always in flux, and certainly it is in flux. The key during this period of time was to begin to look inward, to understand that your foundation in life is actually you. It's what's in here, so that you can draw upon your capacity to build a life from the inside out, not the other way around. So as we enter that, remember, this is not a time when you can go back to the way things were. A life based solely on the expectation that what's outside of you will take care of you, that's not going to work anymore. And so we continue this journey of delving into ourselves and finding our inner strength, our inner determination. And that continues this year because we're still in a transition. So when we're in the space of not knowing where things are at and really not knowing where things are going, we begin to understand that the only thing that we can really count on is ourselves. And that somewhere, if we manage to build the life we built before, we can build a new life, and a life that is more centered on trusting ourselves. Hope that makes sense. So there's a lot of themes this year, and that's one of them. As we begin to try to make change in ways that are actually grounded in reality. Because this year we're going to feel more optimistic, but at the same time, we may want to tell ourselves fairy tales. And so there's a difference between hope and optimism based on something tangible. And when I say tangible, I mean based on something you know about yourself, on all the things you know about yourself. And this may be a year when you find out even more things about yourself. So the kind of tangible I'm talking about is and we don't tend to think of our inner resources as tangible, but we need to see what we have created in the past from within, even though we were not necessarily aware that we were doing it from within. So that theme continues, and it's the best way that we can have to ride the wave, the roller coaster that life seems to have become. Well, not seems to have become. Why am I trying to make it smaller when it's been huge? When that's what it has been. And it's been a difficult journey for us, accepting that there's lots of things that happen in the world that we have no control over. And that it isn't about control as much as it is about taking charge of our reality. And that's really what it is. And that means telling yourself the truth. It doesn't mean telling yourself fairy stories. No disrespect intended. Fairy tales are very symbolic and have lots of really great messages in it. Perhaps I should have used the word fantasy instead. Anyway, so what else? Trusting ourselves. We continue this journey of trusting ourselves. Because how can you actually tap into the parts of you that have carried you through unless you trust yourself? It's been a time of dismantling the idea that things outside us should be or could be responsible for who we are. Okay. So the best way to navigate life going forward, bear with me while I read my notes, is really to do that, is to check in with yourself every day. You know, you can stand wherever in your house and just stand there. Feel your energy on the floor. Feel your feet on the floor. Because this last couple of years have made it hard for us to do that. Because everything's been in flux. We're also going to be building new structures in terms of relationships with ourselves and with others. There's a new Venus-Mars cycle. And so again, because it will be in the sign of Capricorn, it's really important to recognize that this is a time of self-reflection and being motivated from within. So that's why I said building, looking at what you value, understanding, how that may have changed. And it's not so much about dismissing what you've done before, because it's never a case of, well, I did this wrong, so now this is what's right. It's always a case of, well, that's what worked before, but something else needs to happen. That's not working for me anymore. What can I do to move forward? Also, as I said, there's going to be that feeling of optimism, that sense that things are once again possible. And that could differ for us all. And that's going to lead us to a space and a place where we're really gung-ho to get moving. The planet this year that seems to have the most outward impact has to be Jupiter. And so Jupiter tends to expand everything that it touches. And traditionally, we see Jupiter as a sign of positivity, optimism, enthusiasm, and good luck. However, as I said, it expands everything that it touches. So depending on what space and place you're in, you can, make things larger that are difficult and challenging. So it's important to be open to, taking moments where you choose hope, where you choose optimism, where you find something in your daily life that makes your heart sing or makes you feel calm or brings that sense of space, of not feeling crowded and overwhelmed, because we've been living with a lot of that for the last couple of years. Okay, so we are re-examining our values, and there is still quite an internal struggle over needing things to remain the same while it seems like everything is getting either is crumbling or being blown apart. And that's not an easy space or place to be in. And most of that energy is taking place on an inner level. It doesn't mean it's not manifesting in your life. It's just that you're going to feel at I want to say 6s and 7s, I'm not sure, at odds with yourself, feeling, being pulled and pushed in different directions and not really knowing what's what in terms of how to move forward. Well, here's the deal. We are so programmed to always move forward externally. And so the challenge in the last couple of years has been to tap into what's inside us and begin to see that that's where our personal power comes from. Not power connected to anybody else but ourselves. So that can be a little bit disconcerting when you realize that you need to adjust your perception of how life works, of how you experience life, because it doesn't mean you ignore your external reality, far from it. It just means that you can't allow your external reality to define everything about who you are and where you're going, because that's not going to work right now as things continue to be in flux. And the things that we always thought we could count on, we realize are not necessarily as solid or secure as we hoped they were. Now, today we're still in the balsamic moon and we're moving to a new moon. So this new moon in Capricorn is about, finding insight and awareness into new structures you could build inside yourself, right? So I know this is a lot because I've been experiencing it myself, as have we all. And to understand that, and the other thing is when we're looking at practical energy is we're always looking for a way to measure things. And I just want you to take time to recognize it's not about measuring things, and you might not even realize things have shifted until and changed within you until you find yourself in situations and you have a different response than the one that you used to have. That is, change, the kind of deep change and transformation that we're talking about is not something that can be measured. It just can't. And any effort to do that just tends to set you back on your heels and make you, recoil and pull in. And it's been hard not to do that. This year, you're going to feel that energy lighten up a bit, and you're going to want to expand, and you're going to feel the need to expand. And that will work really well as long as you are willing to acknowledge that there are aspects of your life that will never be the same. And to look at that and ask yourself, is that, instead of labeling it good or bad, just recognizing it is, and what can you draw to go forward? Because we need to go forward inwards at this point in time before we'll be able to go forward outwards. And I don't mean a complete overhaul. Again, it's about listening to your body. It's about listening to your consciousness. And that's not always an easy thing to do because we want to put things in columns and we want to plus and minus and this and that, instead of just trusting that we will know the pathway forward. And certainly that's partly what this whole shift and change we've been going through is about. Okay, so one of the things I thought I would do is just give you a couple, 3 questions as a starting point of things you could ask yourself. And you don't have to answer them right away. This is not a test. There's no requirement. It's more a case of, just giving you a starting place, and you might find that there are other questions you'd like to ask yourself. So, number 1 question I wrote down is there something in your life that needs a breakdown or a breakthrough? And when you ask yourself these questions, and I want you to do it, well, it's not about what I want. I would suggest that you sit quietly and ask yourself that question and wait to see how your body responds to that question and what tends to pop into your head. I don't want you to think about it logically, if at all possible. And if it's difficult for you not to go into your head, you can let that stuff surface, your brain start to engage. But in the background, whenever you ask yourself a question of that magnitude, there is a part of you that's seeking to give you some insight. And it may be that you just, you write it down, and then you go away for a while and you go do something else and you don't think about it at all. Because if your brain wants to engage, try doing something and then you'll find that something will pop in when you're not thinking about it. Because the rational mind always wants to get things organized. And that comes in handy when it's time to organize. But we can't always organize what we don't know is actually going on. Okay. Here's another question. Can you identify how you get in your own way? What are your default positions? What are the things that you kind of automatically do without thinking about it? So one of the things that, so one of the ways to hone in on that is to look at anything in your life that frustrates you. And it can be the smallest thing, because if our reaction seems a little bit larger than what is actually going on, then that's a key. So, for instance, I can be as cool as a cucumber in a crisis, but if somebody spills milk on the floor, I can lose my shit. And I think, and when I started looking at that, I realized it was the only place I felt safe to actually express my frustration. Okay, so again, you can follow the same process. If you find that meditating works for you, heck, meditating can be staring out the window and watching it snow. It can be standing by the ocean or by a lake and just tuning into the water. We're not used to inviting our knowing part of our intuitive part to speak to us directly. Often it's kind of used to finding, little nooks and crannies and around the corner kind of ways to talk to us. Now, of course, especially in the last couple of years, as Uranus has gone through Taurus, it's kind of been an awakening of understanding that our body is a huge support system to us. And that it, as much as it holds in everything we've ever experienced, it also lets us know when it's time to release those things. So in order, we're being asked to embody change. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean just doing it. It means paying attention to how our body responds to what's going on around us. And I just have a third question. I'm sure you'll find you have many more. And what actions, I don't like that word, what could you do to be more authentic? Because as I said in my podcast yesterday, we're always on a journey of becoming ourselves. That the notion that we have a clue, say when we're 6 years old or 18 years old or whatever, or even, even at age 60, because life continues to change. We're invited to change on a frequent basis. It's just some of them seem like small ones and some of them seem humongous and out of control. So of course, this year we are seeking to try to find a way to go back to control. And again, I'm going to say that life is about taking charge of your life. Is likely to be more productive, more effective, and more joyful, actually, that trying to control every little thing so that your life looks the way you want it to look really just sets you up for frustration, irritation, and sometimes despair. I think that that's been one of the reasons why we found ourselves so challenged so much to live in this world in the last couple of years, simply because we couldn't control what was going on. And we got angry or frustrated that other people seemed to be in charge of our reality. And one of the things I would say about that is that recognize that what's inside you cannot be controlled by anybody, that who you are at your deepest part of yourself, at your most authentic part of yourself, cannot really be controlled by anybody else unless you choose to participate in it. Because what you think and what you feel is always individual to you. And in respecting that in yourself and allowing yourself, and that's one of the things that will be happening this year, allowing yourself to once again look outside yourself to see what truly is meaningful to you. Because sometimes the way I know I make a lot of, put a lot of emphasis on what's inside us, that doesn't mean you ignore the external world. It means you need to look at what your reactions are to the external world. Those are often keys to who you really are and what you really think. And it can be really overwhelming to discover that what you thought was really, really, really important when you were 20 is no longer important to you. And this year, we begin to focus really strongly on the whole thing about values, what grounds me, what brings me security, what makes me feel safe. And because we're so often taught not to go inward, but to pay attention to sources outside ourselves, then that makes this time a little bit more difficult, because it's like retraining your whole consciousness to shift its focus from anticipating what's going on outside us to listening to what's going on inside us, and believing that we can respond in healthy and practical and hopeful ways to move forward. Because sometimes we think that moving forward means leaving everything behind and forgetting it happened, when that is not healthy. And so, take some time. I'm sure that if you take a look at the last couple of years, there will be things that that warmed your heart. And there might be small things that didn't seem that important in the moment. And yesterday in my previous podcast, I did ask everyone to think about their intention for this year, not their resolutions, but their intentions. And to connect those intentions to something from 2021 that stood out to them, that was important to them. Now, I did that actually before I shared it in the podcast. And what came up for me was a conversation I had with one of my sons. And because it involves another person, I'm not going to share what that conversation was about, but I can tell you that it shifted it shifted a whole bunch of things that seemed stuck. The key always is to be present for yourself, to tell yourself the truth, even if that means that you acknowledge that you told yourself a story, pardon me, You told yourself a story about something that you made a commitment to. And you framed it in such a way that it looked lovely, and then it didn't look so lovely after a while. The key is not, why did this happen? To me, it is more a case of, what was I choosing when I did that? So this is definitely a year, and I'm going to say, where accountability for yourself is paramount. If you know how to do that, and I mean accountable for yourself, not just financially or practically or mentally or spiritually or emotionally or your feeling world, it's the whole enchilada, because we are not functioning just in one aspect of who we are. And sometimes those parts don't seem to talk well to each other, which is a challenge in and of itself. And so this is a year of dialogue with yourself, dialogue with other people, but from a place of being open and wanting to learn and wanting to be able to respect, because respect is the other thing that's important this year. Accountability and respect, respecting others and respecting yourself. So in closing, I'd really like to invite you to meditate. Do a meditation for 2022. Don't go in with any preconceived ideas. And whatever takes you into that meditative brainwave space, again, you can be cooking. It's anything that allows you to get out of your head because you're involved in doing something that's fluid and engages your mental faculties. I had someone once ask me why it was I studied astrology before I started opening up to my psychic gifts. Because when I started studying astrology, that was kind of really out of the box, because I started when I was 24, and that was a while ago. Not in the mood right now to share how old I am. That's coming soon. Anyway, if you'd have told me at that point in time that astrology would ever form the foundation of a career, I would have told you were crazy. And then if you'd have said, and by the way, you're very psychic, I would have probably wanted to sign them up for therapy, because life reveals itself to us not all at once, in rhythms and patterns that allow us to grow. So anyways, that person had asked me why astrology came first and the psychic part came second. And for me, the answer is quite simple, because I needed something to engage my brain and have it engaged in symbols and looking at patterns and all that stuff, so that I could then allow my intuition to move forward and my psychic ability to move forward into my life. So this is a year of kind of doing the same thing. Find spaces and places to engage your brain and let your intuition and your knowing speak to you. And that's really what meditation does. It's designed to take your logical mind out of the picture, but it doesn't mean, nothing else is going on. We put so much emphasis on our rational, logical mind that we forget that we really are multi-frequency beings, and we do have other frequencies on which we experience life and in which we engage in life. Anyway, I'm so happy you could join me again. Really looking forward to 2022 and doing more podcasts. And I don't know, I feel 2022, it's not going to be without its moments of crap. Is that really happening? Of course, there will be those. But there will also be room for optimism and hope going forward. And I wish you all a wonderful 2022 full of growth, full of knowing yourself better, full of all of the things that you feel will give your life more meaning and make you feel, not make you feel anything, invite you to be more of yourself. So for now, I'm going to sign off and say toodaloo. One of my dad's things he always used to say. And just as an aside, this has been a Christmas when I really found myself thinking lots about my parents and my grandparents, and they're behind me, can't see the whole piece of art. But anyway, not sure where I brought that up, except to say that I find myself now drawing on things from my family, from the past, the present, and trying to build a future. And that's all that any of us can do. Anyways, you take good care. See you next time. Bye-bye.